Okay, so we're going to cover Superman, the final days of Superman. This was technically the final story, the last story for New 52 Superman in DC Comics. Let me explain. So, back in the year 2011, DC felt like it was time for a reboot. So, all their different books were technically canceled, and we got a reboot, which was the New 52. Now, it was not a complete reboot, but most of the characters were rebooted. Unfortunately, one of those characters was Superman. Now, here's the thing, because even though we did get a new origin for the character, and we did get some very interesting storylines for this new Superman, unfortunately, his hardcore fans were not happy with the idea of what they were doing with their favorite hero. And so, by the tail end of the New 52, you could tell that DC realized they made a huge mistake. And so they begun the process of trying to remove this version of Superman and bring back the pre-New 52 Superman, the one from the universe they had basically got rid of for the New 52 universe. And so the last couple storylines that we had covered were really the idea of DC saying, yeah, we have to get rid of this character and bring back the one that fans care for more. And so DC realized they had to kill off this character as a way to clear a path for the one that fans care for more to come back. And so they gave us 3 different storylines that begun the process of killing off Superman. Now, we only covered 2 of the 3 storylines. The first one was Darkseid War. Now, when it came to Darkseid War, Superman was affected by the solar energy of Apocalypse, and when it came to the solar energy, it kind of damaged his cells. And that did even more harm later on when it came to the Truth Arc. In the Truth Arc, Clark Kent was powerless, and he was trying to find different ways to get his powers back. But unfortunately, he locked himself up inside a cage that was full of kryptonite, and he was hoping the kryptonite would technically help him regain his powers. It did, but it also damaged his cells as well. Now, there was a third storyline, but I'm not going to focus on that right now. Either way, you have Clark Kent realize that after those different events, he's now dying, and he's been inside the Fortress of Solitude for a good period of time, running different kinds of tests. And with these tests, they all say the same thing. Clark Kent, Kal-El, you are going to die. Unfortunately, this is your end. There is nothing that we can do to save your life. Now, Clark Kent is not really upset about the idea of dying. He's really more upset about the idea that he will no longer be around to help protect this world. He will no longer be around to help lead the human race into a better direction. But then he realized it's time for him to inform the people that he cares for the most, to tell them that he is dying. We did have to jump over to China. Now, when we do, we actually pick up with a character known as Dr. Omen. Now, when it comes to Dr. Omen, she's currently at her base of operations, but she is trying to hack into the computer system of the Fortress of Solitude. Now, this is not an easy thing to do, because when it comes to the Fortress of Solitude, you are talking about the idea of some advanced tech that came from Krypton. Either way though, she was able to hack into the system, and she does begin the process of trying to collect some data from the actual system. But unfortunately for her, you have Clark Kent being able to close the breach and being able to say, okay, everything should be good now. Nobody else should be able to hack into our systems. And so then you have Clark and Crypto leave to go save the world, but to also see his loved ones as well. Now, the first person he goes to see is Lana Lang. Now, this makes a lot of sense because 1, they're best friends, but 2, this was the first woman that he fell in love with. Now, even though he was unable to be with her, they stayed as close friends, and he was there for her no matter what, and she was always there for him no matter what. And she also knows that Clark Kent is Superman. And so at first, it seems like two characters who are just talking to one another and going down, old memories. But unfortunately, she didn't realize that Clark is not telling her something at all. And that is when Clark tells her he's dying. Now, when he does die, he's hoping that she'll be able to bury him right next to his parents. Because remember, in the New 52, the Kents died when Clark was 16 years old. And so it's him asking Lana, can you please make sure that I am buried alongside with my family? And she says yes, but she still cannot believe about the idea that her best friend is going to die. Now, getting back over to Dr. Omen very quickly, we do see her currently walking into a room where she has somebody or some kind of thing trapped inside some kind of container. But she does plan on to release this thing or person into the world. But unfortunately, we have no idea who this person could possibly be. We then pick up with some random guy who is currently trying to go home. Now here's the thing, this guy is actually wanted by the police right now. He has a warrant out for his arrest. And so you have this cop try his best to arrest the guy, but unfortunately the cop couldn't do anything at all. The guy got away. Now this random guy does try his best to use his car as a way to get far away from the cop. Unfortunately, out of nowhere, a random light comes out of the sky and crashes into his car and sends him in the car off the bridge, and they crash somewhere else. Now you do have a young couple get out of their car to make sure that he is okay. And then he gets out of the car unharmed, but then he releases a huge amount of solar energy, and he says that he is Superman. But getting back over to Clark, you have Clark going over to the next person that he wants to tell about the idea that he is dying. And we kind of find out that person is going to be Lois Lane. Now remember, when it came to the New 52, DC really wanted Clark to not be with Lois at all, because this is a new universe. He needs new love interests. And so they gave Clark over to Diana, Wonder Woman. And so when it came to Clark and Lois, they were just two best friends, and that is it. But she also was the one who told the entire world that Clark Kent was Superman back in the Truth arc. But this is Clark telling Lois, hey, I'm dying. And so as we jump into the next chapter, we do pick up with Superman going over to Gotham City. And of course, you know why. To tell Batman that he is dying. Because by this point in the New 52, Batman and Superman were very close friends. And so it would make a lot of sense for Clark to tell his best friend that he is dying. Now, with that being said, when he does arrive in Gotham, you have Batman currently fighting against a range of different kinds of super villains. Now, when it comes to these different kinds of villains, unfortunately, they're not very important for the overall storyline. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to spend any kind of time talking about them. Just know that Batman is able to hold his own against these guys until you have Clark step in and take them all out. And that is when Batman realized, if Clark came to Gotham, handle my fight for me, but also being very serious, that means something important is about to happen and Clark and I need to talk. And so you have Clark take Batman back over to the Batcave. And so once you have our two heroes get back over to the Batcave, that is when you have Superman tell Batman that he is dying. Now, for Bruce, he's kind of like, hey, did you run the test? Did you use the Fortress of Solitude to run different kinds of tests on you to figure out if there could be a way to save your life? And you have Clark tell Bruce, he already did that. He ran the different kinds of tests. Every single test told him the same thing. Superman is going to die. And so for Bruce, it's kind of like, dang, I lost my parents, I lost other people, and now I'm going to lose my best friend. Now, you have Batman right now showing a strong face. He's trying to hide back all the emotions that he's currently feeling about the idea that Clark Kent is going to die. Now, you do have Clark ask Batman to do one thing for him, to find Supergirl. Because when Clark dies, Supergirl will technically be the sole survivor of Earth, or Krypton, sorry. And so he asks Bruce, I need you to find my cousin. If you do, please tell me so I can inform her, but also ask her to do me a favor. And you have Clark leave. Now, when he does leave, we see how much this affects Bruce Wayne. He shows a tad bit of anger, but also Alfred is also hurt as well because he realized that Bruce Wayne is hurting, losing his best friend, but he also liked Clark Kent as well. But getting back over to our random character that truly believes that he is Superman, we see him in Metropolis trying to be the hero of Metropolis, trying to be Superman. And matter of fact, when he is confronted by Jimmy Olsen, this man truly believes two things. One, he's Clark Kent, and two, he is Superman. And on top of that, he believes that he really knows Jimmy Olsen. Now, Jimmy realized this guy is wearing a Superman outfit, but this is not Clark. This is not Superman. And so you have our new mysterious character just fly away with the idea of him thinking that he is Clark Kent. But then we have to jump over to Superman and Batman. And when we do, you have Batman inform Superman that he was able to locate Supergirl. Now, before he is able to explain how he was able to find her and where she is at, well, that is the moment where our two heroes are attacked by 4 superpower beings. And these beings are representing the Chinese zodiac creatures. Or animals, sorry. And so now you have these 4 superpower beings coming after Superman and Batman. Now our two heroes are able to actually take down all 4 of them, except one of them was able to wound Superman, to draw a lot of blood from him, and that blood got on that person's hand. And that person is able to get away by teleporting away. Now the other 3 are still there. They have been defeated and captured by our two heroes. But the last one, well, like I said, he got away. Now when it comes to Superman, he realized that how easily it was for that creature to draw blood from him, which means that even though he is healing up, he is also dying at a faster rate, because now he is less durable than he was originally. And so now he tells Batman, we have to find Supergirl now. And so as we jump into the 3rd chapter, we kind of find out that Supergirl is being held inside National City in a base called the DEO Ghost Site 122. Now when it comes to the DEO, they're better known as Department of Extra Normal Operations. Either way, apparently at first it does look like Supergirl is being held against her will. And so you have Clark just going ham through this entire base to save his cousin. He basically breaks in like it's nothing, grabs his cousin, and he flies straight heck out of there. And once he does, he tries to wake her up so that they are able to have a conversation. Except you have Supergirl then tell Superman that she was not being held against her will. That matter of fact, she actually joined the DEO to find a way to get her powers back. Because we kind of find out by this point in the New 52, Supergirl was losing her powers, kind of like how Clark was in the Truth arc, except a tad bit different, because the DEO was able to find a way to give her her powers back, but unfortunately only in small bursts. And so every once in a while, she was able to use her powers, but then it'll be on a time limit. And then she would have to go back to the DEO to get another burst of power until they were able to find a way to actually cure what's happening to her body that is blocking her powers from being there. Either way, she's very upset with the idea that Clark just took her out of the DEO. Now, before he is able to apologize, well, he begins to fall out of the sky. And that is the moment where you have Superman tell Supergirl that he is dying. But also, he tells her the favor that he asked to ask her. And that favor is, can you take over in protecting the world for me? Because I'm gone. And they're going to need somebody like us, somebody like you, to guide this race in the right direction, to make sure this world continues to get better rather than getting worse. Because it comes down to you to install hope. But then we have to jump back over to Dr. Omen. And this is where we kind of find out that the four beings we saw earlier that had attacked Superman and Batman, but one of them got away, well, they were all working for Dr. Omen. And we kind of find out she wanted the blood of Superman for some unknown reason. And so she cuts off the hand of the one that got away from Superman and Batman so that she could do a better job analyzing the blood of Superman. And the question is right now, what in the world is she going to do with that blood? But we have to shift back over to the guy we saw earlier who believes that he is Superman. And the reason why, because he arrived at the Daily Planet. And now he is walking around this place thinking that he is Clark Kent. But everybody else who knows Clark Kent knows that this guy right here is not Clark. But this man he really thinks that he is Clark Kent. Now here's the thing, because he does get very upset when he sees someone sitting in Clark's desk, because again, he believes that he is Clark, but he does not know that by this point in time, Clark Kent does not work at the Daily Planet, because back in the Truth arc, when Lois Lane told the entire world that Superman was Clark Kent, well, Perry White fired Clark because having Clark around could get other people hurt. But the thing is, this guy who thinks that he is Clark Kent apparently did not know that. And so you had this guy get very upset and begin to attack the guy who was sitting at Clark's desk. Now, luckily, Lois Lane was there and she was able to knock this guy out. And she tells Perry, hey, make some calls because this guy needs to be locked up very quickly. But getting back over to the Fortress of Solitude, we do pick up with Superman and Supergirl. And again, it's just Clark Kent giving her all the evidence to prove that yes, he is dying, but he also wants to make sure that she does promise to take up where he left off at, to make sure the world is protected, to help make this world a better place. Now, for Supergirl, for her, this is hard because in the New 52, her and Clark were never close, but it's now her realizing that she is going to be truthfully alone for good now, because now the only person she had left is dying. Now you have Clark saying, listen, even though I'll be dead, a part of me will still be part of the Fortress of Solitude. So just know, no matter what, I will always be there with you. Now, before we are able to jump into the next chapter, that is when Clark realized that somebody had arrived at the Fortress of Solitude. Somebody that he forgot to tell that he was dying. And of course, that would be Wonder Woman. And so as we dive into the fourth chapter, we do pick up with the conversation between Superman and Wonder Woman. Now, here's the thing, because remember, in the New 52, these two characters were dating one another. Now, in the middle of the Truth arc, Superman dumped Diana because he felt like he could no longer trust her. Either way, though, by this point, she still feels like she has the right to know that the man she loves is dying. And matter of fact, he even says, I was going to tell you, But the problem was for me is that I knew if I tell you, that was when I realized it's happening for real. Now, you're probably wondering, okay, how did Diana find out? Well, Batman told her. Now, it wasn't like Batman kind of said, hey, by the way, I'm going to tell you that Clark is dying. It was really more of Batman thinking that Clark told her first, because these two were madly in love with one another, to only find out that he did not tell her yet. But either way, you do have Diana tell Clark, we need to try something here. She wants to go over to the gods of her mythology. She wants Clark to run a few more tests to figure out if there is a possibility where they could save his life. But unfortunately, there's nothing that Clark nor her could do. But on top of that, Clark is ready to die. He's kind of like, listen, let's just stop. Matter of fact, let's spend the last few days here together and make these last few days here together some great ones, because I'm ready to go. And so that is the moment you have these two characters kiss one another. Now, you could technically say that this is Clark kind of forgiving Diana for what he did to her in the Truth arc, or what she did to him, in the Truth arc. But either way, these two have made up. But unfortunately, Clark is still going to die. And so while you have the two characters making out, they both get a call from Lois Lane and Steve Trevor about our friend, the other Superman, who was just taken out at the Daily Planet. And so you do have our heroes head over to Stryker Island. Now, when they do arrive, they realize or find out that there is another guy out there who is claiming to be Superman. And this guy truly does believe that he is Superman. Matter of fact, when he sees Clark Kent, he's kind of like, wait a second, who are you? You are an imposter. How dare you wear my family crest? And when it comes to Diana, he's very upset about the idea that she is with Clark, because he believes that he is the real Clark. And so seeing Diana with the real Clark Kent, he feels like he has been betrayed. Now, when it comes to our two heroes, they realize that the energy that he is releasing is very similar to Clark Kent's solar flare. And here's the thing, because Diana feels like when Clark Kent first used his solar flare, which was on Ulysses, back in the storyline called Superman, the Men of Tomorrow, she believes that possibly the energy that Clark released may have done something to someone, or possibly somebody was able to do something with the energy that you had released, Clark. Now, here's the thing, because when it came to Ulysses, he was a very strong character for Superman. But on top of that, he had the ability to manipulate any kind of energy. And so the question is right now, when Clark did release the solar flare, even though it was too much energy for Ulysses to control, there is still a possibility that he had manipulated the energy that Clark released when he did his solar flare. And so you have Clark saying, I need to talk to Ulysses, who is technically just one floor down. And so while you have Clark having a conversation with Ulysses, you have Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor continuing to watch the other Superman as he continues to freak out. But at the same time, he is getting stronger and stronger. And so sooner or later, he's going to be able to break out of his cell. The question is though, when? And the problem is that when could be very soon. Now, while you have Clark trying to ask Ulysses questions about his solar flare and the possibility that Ulysses did something with the energy of the solar flare, well, that is when the other Superman breaks free. And when he does break free, he shuts down both systems to both cells, his cell, but also Ulysses' cell. And so now Ulysses has the ability to fight against Clark now. Now, when it comes to Ulysses, you have to remember, he first appeared back in the storyline known as Superman, the Men of Tomorrow, where technically his origin is somewhat similar to Clark Kent. See, he was on Earth, but he was sent away to Dimension 4 because his parents felt like the Earth was technically doomed because of one of their projects. Now, he only came back to Earth 25 years later, but his goal was to sacrifice the lives of 6 million people as a way to save his adoptive world. The problem was, though, Clark got in the way of that plan, and so his adoptive world, well, technically got destroyed. And so he blames Clark for the death of his adoptive parents, but the entire world that he was on for 25 years. And so this is him trying to get revenge against Clark Kent. The problem is, though, Ulysses realized that Clark Kent is fighting back, but he's not as strong as he used to be. Because again, Clark Kent is dying. He is no longer at that power level that he always was at the very beginning of the New 52. Now, when it comes to our other Superman, he does fight against Diana, and he is able to go toe-to-toe with her to the point where he is able to get away. Now, once he does leave, the power does come back on, and of course, that means Ulysses' powers are technically canceled once again. They've been turned off, which does save the life of Superman. Now, when it comes to Ulysses, he's kind of like, listen, even though I want to kill off Superman, I just realized I don't have to, because he is already dying. Sooner or later, he is going to die, which is just another way to confirm that Clark Kent is dying. These are his final days as Superman. And so this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.